And good morning. We are live on the Falcons Podcast. Let me bring in my Facebook groups here. We've got Atlanta Falcons on SI and Scott Kennedy Sports. If you're not following those, give them a follow. There's only a couple billion people on Facebook. Even if you're not on there very much, you still might be on there. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. It is a Wednesday edition as we get ready for Friday's preseason game. I know it's not too exciting with the preseason games when you're only seeing guys that are about to be out of jobs. But it just means we are one step closer to kickoff, which I am very excited about. Nick should be joining us today. I haven't heard from him yet today. We'll intro the show. He joins in a little bit late. It's 5:30 in the morning Seattle time, so I'm still expecting him, but we'll see. We didn't want to keep you waiting because we got a lot to talk about. For me, it's going to be kind of a day of what is everybody else saying out there. I titled the show around ESPN's best and worst case scenarios for the Atlanta Falcons, and they actually put that out the day before the Atlanta Falcons signed Justin Simmons. So it was worst record possible, basically your floor, and then your ceiling, what was the best record possible. And even with the Justin Simmons signing, it was exactly what I would have picked for both of them, your floor and your ceiling on that. We got a mock draft that dropped. It's never too early for mock drafts, is it? Field Yates and ESPN put out a mock draft. ESPN also did a compilation of sorts of what to expect, like which of the 7 new football coaches are in the best positions. And, I just did some quick math. They basically did a 5-year win total for the Atlanta Falcons. Let me tell you, if the 5-year win total is what they say it is, I'm going to be pissed. It better be better than that, is all I have to say. So those are all of the things we're going to get into over the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour. Right now, though, I want to say hello to everybody that's come into the chat. There's Nick. We'll let him catch his breath for just a second and we'll drop him in here as I take a slug of coffee, and we'll say hello to some folks in the chat that were here before I was here. As we build this on the YouTube room, it opens up for the chat first. Like Mitchell Angeloni, who was here. Fellas, pumped for a great show. Counting down the days until week 1. Appreciate y'all, and as always, rise up. Appreciate you, Mitch. Thanks for being here. George, he's here as well. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Cannot wait for the season to start. With the latest ads, the Falcons should have the best safety duo in the NFL. The pass rush is now better. Nick, good morning. 5:40 over there in Seattle. How are you doing this morning, my friend?
I'm doing okay. Unfortunately, I think I'm starting to understand why daycare is a little bit concerning for some people, because another cold is here. So starting to feel a little snotty. My throat's a little better this morning than it was yesterday, but I can really feel more nasally than normal, and I already have kind of a nasally voice. So
I'm telling you, man, I've said this before, they need to take elementary school teachers, and that's where you need to come up with immunity systems. They've got the best immune system. I mean, I was never sick since like middle school until the first year I had a child in the house. And then it gets better, though. My son's been homesick for 2 days. Just sent him back today. I've been fine. So it does get better. But the first 5, 6, 7 years, which sounds like a long time, it really isn't.
No, it flies by.
It's terrible, man. You send them to these incubator germ factories, and everybody gets sick, and they come back and bring it back in the house. Yeah.
So I apologize for being a little bit more raspy, nasally than normal, but hopefully the hot coffee will clear things up, and feeling good, feeling excited, and happy to be here at 5:40 a.m. It's been earlier.
And a little bit of adrenaline that goes with the show also. It's tough to do these shows and then go to sleep, that's for sure. So they're good morning wake ups. Philip Crawford, he's got I don't want to embarrass myself with these arms. He's flexing. Good to see you. That's a very cool profile pic. The Sunrise, Michael Ronquillo, he's up for you here this morning for sure. So thank you, Michael. Appreciate you being here. Greg Elrod getting us started with the super chat. Thank you, my friend. Helps keep these lights on here. Keeps my forehead nice and shiny for everybody. He says, is it too early for mock drafts? Yes, it is. Good morning. It's never too early for mock drafts. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but I will mention, because to me, there's a couple things that are interested in mock drafts. And maybe the most interesting part of it right now is, all right, where are a couple of these named recognized players going? Like Shedeur Sanders. What are people saying about him right now? He's in the news. But also, I wanted to scroll and see, all right, where do they have the Falcons picking? Now, they're doing that off of like Super Bowl odds or whatnot, but I don't look at Super Bowl odds. I look at mock drafts. I'm like, okay, where do they have the Falcons picking? Because, they're like 19th in their power rankings. Well, then they should be picking, 12th, 13th, right? No, they're picking like 22nd. So, some of the times with a big organization like ESPN, and you've got guys like Seth Walder who piss on everything the Atlanta Falcons do. I mean, just stand there and, anyway, on him. And then you've got the best, calling Kirk Cousins the best pickup, the most impactful pickup in the NFL, the most improved team, and all this type of stuff. All right, well, what do you actually think? Well, the odds say that they're going to be one of the top third finishing teams in the NFL. So, Greg, we'll just hit on that. We'll talk about where they're picking. I just said where they're picking, who they pick, ramifications for other players, and what that means. But he says, "Good morning, Scott. Good to be here listening. Good to be here listening. Yeah, to you too. Repeat yourself a couple times. So thank you for the super chat, my friend. So on that note, Nick, it was I think it was published 6 days ago, which would have been Thursday. So it was right after the Matthew Judon trade. And it's, by the way, Matt Judon. That's what he's listed on in Pro Football Reference. That's what he's listed on the Atlanta Falcons roster. That's how we're going to use his name, at least try to. And when we write it on Falcons SI, he'll be Matt Judon. That's what he says. So Matt, the ESPN did a floor and a ceiling after the Matt Judon trade, but before the Justin Simmons signing. What do you think the floor was? If you haven't, you probably haven't seen it. So this is fresh for you.
Floor for this Falcons team?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's like Kirk Cousins gets hurt again, Penix isn't quite ready, and the defense isn't great. So I'd say the floor probably 6 wins. That's like a wide range there. I think that's like I think they'll be better than that, so don't come for me. But I think that's about 6 wins as a floor, which is a pretty good floor for a team that still has a lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, we're most of the people in here are Falcons fans, and we've seen floors. Yeah. We know what floors look like. So 6 wins as a floor isn't all that bad. They said 7, which is kind of what I say on this, just because, all right, I feel like, again, we talked about it on Monday, I don't think this team is 1 injury away from 5-12. This isn't the New York Jets. Oh, the New York Jets are loaded. Aaron Rodgers. Well, they were only going to go as far as Aaron Rodgers could take them. And when he's hurt in the first game, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
If Kirk Cousins gets hurt, I still think this is a playoff team. So there's a lot that has to go wrong. Knock on wood. I don't want to find out. That's the thing. I don't want to find out. I want everybody to be healthy, and let's let the chips fall where they may. So I said 7 and so did they. So I agree with that. I'm like, oh, okay, nice.
Yeah. Broncos. Michael's in here. The Broncos floor must be 2. Then probably 2 or 3.
It was 3. Yeah, the Broncos floor was 3-14.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, again, maybe I'm jaded, Scott, because I'll never forget saying, "Oh, you got Russell Wilson." I guarantee you, it won't be as bad as it was last year. Oh, I don't know if you never watched It's Always Sunny, but we can go lower. We can go lower. So 6-7 makes a lot of sense. Ceiling, I mean, you haven't asked me yet, but I guess 13, 14, probably 13 is what I'd set the ceiling at.
I said 12, and this was before the Simmons signing, remember?
Yeah.
But even after the Simmons signing, I'm still a little more conservative.
Yeah.
I say 12-5. And that's what they said too. I'm like, it's 12-5. It's hard to say that 12-5 of a ceiling because who is it? Was it it had just come in here and asked one of our first, it was Red Swarm. Appreciate you, Red Swarm. He says, "Good morning, Scott, Nick, all my friends in the chat." That's all, y'all. When can we expect your season predictions? Rise up. Now, before I want to do like the Wednesday before week 1, before the Steelers game, we'll go through again and go game by game. And I thought about this, Nick. I was like, I almost want to break it into blocks. It's like, okay, here's 4 games. The Falcons are going to be favored in all 4 of these games, but they're not going to win all 4. And I started doing math probability in my head. Yes, this is what it's like being in the head of Scott Kennedy. I'm like, all right, if you're a 60% chance to win, Your chance of winning 2 in a row at 60% for both of them is 36%. You take 0.6 and multiply it by 0.6. If you're a 60% favorite on the next one, you multiply it by 0.6 again. I can't do that math in my head, but it's about 20%. So you've got a 20% chance to win 3 in a row, even as a touchdown favorite in all 3 games. So as you go through them game by game, I'm like, man, 15-2. I'm like, no, I'm going to put these in blocks and say, here's a 4-game set. You could probably go 3-1 out of this. So while I think they'll be favored in 15 of 17 games, maybe 16 in 15 of the 17 games at worst, I like 11-6 is my season prediction. And then I said, when I'm reading this, the ceiling is 12-5. Well, really? If you're thinking they should be 11-6, is your ceiling really 12-5, or is that just your cynical nature kicking in? Probably the latter. Probably the latter. So realistically, if you're favored in 15 games, what's your ceiling?
Probably 15.
Probably 15.
Yeah. The NFL is weird too. It's not like college football, right, where there's such a massive talent disparity. Anybody can beat anybody at any point. What do they have the circle of, oh God, what do they call it? Like where every team beats every team eventually. So you have the circle of whatever it's called. I can't even remember. But yeah, I'd say 13 wins as the ceiling for this Falcons team. Now, again, I'm really leaning into what a floor and ceiling is, clipping it a little bit higher, right? It's confidence intervals. We're doing the 100% confidence intervals versus 95, 90. But not to get too statistical for you. But yeah, it's another factor, of course, Scott, is the fact that you play in the NFC South, right? Like your schedule, who you're like, there's a reason the power rankings, they're not as high, but then you get to the mock draft ratings. Well, somebody's got to win the NFC South, right? If all those teams are ranked no higher than 16th in the power rankings, well, somebody wins. So we'll see. But I mean, like I've said on here, I'm as excited and optimistic about this Falcons team as any team I've covered since starting doing this back in 2016.
Yeah, I like 9-8. I'll be a little disappointed at this point. Basically before I said about 8-9. Anything, if you don't go at least 8-9, I'll be disappointed. I would consider 8-9 a disappointment. 9-8, I would still be a little disappointed. 10-7 to me should be the floor of the expectations for this team. If this team doesn't go, and Falcons, the chat out there watching, would you agree that 9-8 would be disappointing to you? Like, oh, they won the NFC South, they went 9-8. I'm like, I don't care if you win the division if you stink. I really don't. Which we've seen the past couple of years. Tampa Bay ended up being a pretty good team last year, but before that, I think they won at 8-9. I'm like, no, that's marketing NFL mediocrity parody BS. Winning a division at 8-9. I'd be disappointed if this team doesn't, if they go 9-8. I would consider not a failure, but disappointed. 8-9, I consider a failure. Injuries notwithstanding, I know. But, as Michael Ranquillo says, it's NFL playoffs or bust for the Atlanta Falcons this season. Oh, there's some folks, these are the ones that kind of get me all out there. It'll be like Super Bowl or bust. I'm like, this team has never won a Super Bowl. I mean, how do you go through life expecting a Super Bowl for a team that's never won one? I mean, if you're going to be disappointed if they don't go to the Super Bowl, you're considered that a failure. Man, you're going to be more miserable than I am on a day-to-day basis with my teams. For goodness sakes, you got to find your wins out there. At least 10-7. I want a playoff win out of this and an NFC South crown. Those are my expectations for this team. Anything less than that, and I'm gonna consider it not a failure, but I'll think that they underachieved to a certain extent.
I mean, not to be super cliche, but what's the first goal every year? It's to win your division. So after that, you let the chips fall where you may. But I won't even go more coach cliche, game by game, one at a time. But win the division, and you'll get a home playoff game with that, and you'll see what happens from there. But a lot of new pieces. It could take a little bit to get the ball rolling, to be operating at a high level, efficient level, and a lot of new question marks. But I think, just win the division. If that's 9-8, Scott, things happen. You got a chance then. That would be slightly disappointing, but it's hard to be disappointed hanging a banner in the rafters, right? So expectations are, I think 9.5 would be where I'd set the over under right now, and I probably would take the over. 10.5 just feels a little too high.
Let me throw, for that. Let me throw in a caveat on that, because let's say you go 9-8 and make a playoff run. You get to the NFC Championship, then 9-8 doesn't matter anymore. If you go 9-8 and you're first round out, that was it. I don't care about the NFC South Division title. If you played mediocre football for 4 months and then got whipped in a playoff game, this season is a disappointment to me.
Yeah, it's a meh. It's a little squeaker of a wet
We're not here for meh this year. This is not a meh roster. Meh would have been an improvement. I love when people say, "Oh, he's mid," about a guy who just sucks. Desmond Ritter's mid. I'm like, I wish he was mid. If Desmond Ridder had been mid, this team would have been a playoff team.
Yeah.
Desmond Ridder wasn't mid. Calder says, Terry made all these moves, and I'm mad I let my PSL season tickets go. Yeah, I'm mad you actually had to pay a PSL. Now, was that a one-time thing? I keep getting season ticket renewals. I had season tickets in the late 90s, and I'm still on a list, on an email list. But I haven't checked to see. I know they're just so expensive. It's like any place I'd want to sit, it's still $200-something a game. I'm like, that's just a lot of money, because you don't just buy one. You end up buying, and then I don't trust the resale factor. If I can't go, or the giveaway, we've seen that, it'd be good right now. So yeah. And plus I don't have time on weekends with travel baseball. That's a get the kids out of the house type of thing for me with going to actual professional sports games.
And Scott, I got to say, I must be just super basic. PSL are we talking pumpkin spice lattes here? What's going on? They're back at Starbucks.
Personal seat licenses. We call those the shakedown charge. So you have to buy the right to buy a ticket they do that in new stadiums a lot. I don't know. First time I ever heard about it was when the Browns came back and absolutely gouged their starved, screwed over Cleveland fans. I was a little surprised Arthur Blank did it, but when he moved to Mercedes, he made the exact same mistakes that they did when they moved into Turner Field in '97 and priced out the fans. So the lower bowl is totally corporate. And just, not necessarily your fans in the bottom. That's why in the past you either see the lower bowl on TV either empty or full of other teams' fans who were willing to buy the $500 seats on resale. So Arthur Smith did a good job of retaking home field advantage last year. They had a good home record, but the Arthur Blank really, maybe he didn't make a mistake. He's putting money in his pocket. But as far as the home field advantage and doing right by the fans, he got greedy and made the same mistake that the Braves did with Turner in the late 90s.
Yeah. That's interesting. I don't know. I don't have all the scars.
No, the Falcons, the Atlanta sports fan will not tolerate being gouged, which is why I said the Thrashers were never, ever going to work here. Sorry to get off topic here. I'll keep this quick. Hockey has the big salaries. They don't have the big TV money. So they have the highest seat, like the ticket in the major sports. At least they did. I quit paying attention a long time ago.
NFL, because there's only how many home games?
But like they took the money out on their fans so they could pay these tickets because they didn't have the TV money. That's not going to work here. You're not going to pay $200, $300, $400 seats to watch a bad hockey team in Atlanta. It was never, ever going to work. Chris Walker says, morning, everyone, and Scott and Nick. It's because kids are notorious for not washing their hands, too busy wanting to not miss out and playing and having fun. Yeah, and then there's just close, talking about being sick in there, close quarters and all that type of stuff, and their immune systems aren't built up completely, and it's good. They need that though. They need that. Can't have them in a bubble. I wanted to we hit on some of the chat's gotten busy here, so I'll scroll down to the bottom and make sure that things are going good. Michael Ranquillo asks, he says, Scott, how was the Justin Simmons presser on Monday with the Atlanta Falcons? Michael is what you would expect. He was awesome. I mean, he was awesome. He is awesome. I hope he's able to keep playing at a high level because I want that for him and I want that for Falcons fans because I am a Justin Simmons fan, flat out. And I want him to have success with his new team. It just happens to be this team. So he was awesome. He's personable. He talked up the other players that he's around. Some of the reasons he chose the team, the city, heading in the right direction, et cetera. Real quick on the let's see, the expected 5-year win total. Okay, the ESPN did this as well, and they ran. There was some other acronym, but it actually wasn't an acronym. It was like the ELO ratings. Well, ELO was a guy who actually ranked chess players, and they adapted it 10 years ago to different sports. And they did ELO ratings and put it across offense, defense. And yes, the Falcons offense was like 28th. The defense was like 18th, which is some of the things that you and I have gotten into, where this defense wasn't a top 10 defense last year. They were 11th in scoring or in total yards, I think, but that's not the whole story. Actually, we're worse than their 7-10 record based on their schedule. I kind of agree with that one too. The team last year was dreadful to watch. I think we can all agree on that. But they said the 5-year win total for Ryann Morris. Lay it on me, Nick. What would you think it would be for the Atlanta Falcons?
5-year win total for the Atlanta Falcons?
How many wins do you average over the next 5 years as Ryann Morris and the Atlanta Falcons?
48.
He had it at 40. 40. That's a losing season. You're going to be a losing franchise over the next 5 years. Now, we just got done saying 11 wins. Well, that gives you 5-game cushion. I can't quite do the math in my head, but that gives you like you're 5 games over 500. It gives you a 5-game cushion after year one. If this team wins just 40 games over the next 5 years, that would be really, really bad with the young core you've got. Now you've got the resources to start building up your young defense as well. You got your quarterback of the future. This is an 8-win team for the next 5 years. I'm going to be really, really disappointed, because that means in 4 years, if you go 11-6 this year, or even 10-7 this year, that means there's some 7-10 in 3-4 years. Then what the hell did you get? That means Michael Penix was a bust. Well, not good. I disagree in the 40. But, ironically, Nick, not ironically, but just to be fair, I guess is what I'm trying to spit out here. All of the numbers were pretty low. They were pretty low. It's like, we don't expect teams to improve, despite the fact that we give them all of the tools and resources to improve because we want to force parity in the NFL. So they were actually the third highest at 40 wins.
Wow. What was the question again? The total for 5 years?
Total. Yeah, 5-year win total.
I mean, you can't just pick 0 for everybody, right? Like, somebody has to win the games. It should come out and equal how many games there are in 5 seasons. But I mean, when I said 48, that's 9.6 wins a season. That's pretty good, considering there's going to be some there'll probably be a season that it's 6 wins or 7 wins. So that's 48. A pretty good number. It was
expected wins. Number 1 was Mike McDonald, Seattle Seahawks, with 41.8. 42 wins. What's that divided by 5? 8.5. So he thinks that none, based on this metric, again, garbage in, garbage out. When we start talking about data, it's data, it's analytics. Yeah, but what's your formula? If your formula is effed up, then your results are effed up. He's got Mike McDonald, Seattle Seahawks, 41.8. Jim Harbaugh, LA Chargers, 40.4. Ryann Morris, 40.1 at number 3. Dan Quinn at 37.5. Jared Mayo, 35.3. Brian Callahan, 35.1. And Dave Canales at 31.7. Basically, there's not going to be a winning team.
No,
I think 7.
I think there's a caveat in here, because it doesn't make sense unless they're predicting that some of these guys might get fired before. Right? Like, they don't make it to 5 years.
Fine, but it's for the team. It's not. Yeah. It's basically who's coming into the best situation is basically what it's trying to say.
I mean, the Seahawks?
I'm okay with that. I just
they got questions.
I don't understand. Maybe I went through this and just don't quite understand it. You think the Seahawks You think any of these teams made these changes so they could continue to be losing franchises? Now, some of them are gonna be, but not all of them are gonna be losing. And Jordan says, it was set up. Is it only for the new coaches this year? Yeah, it was. So, and Seattle does need a quarterback, which the Falcons might have. They think they do. They think they do. 48-5 seasons would be, 9. That's more than 9 wins. It's 9.5 wins. The Falcons are a 9.5 win team over 5 years. That would put them in probably the top 7 or 8 teams, honestly, over that type of consistency. So yeah, I was not a big fan of this metric. Ranking. It was Neil Payne, and it was a couple days ago on ESPN. It says ranking 7 new NFL coaches who is best situated to win. And number 1, Mike McDonald, expected 5-year wins. How else am I supposed to read expected 5-year wins other than expected 5-year wins? 41.8. I don't want to sit here and go, oh yeah, I'm going to keep the receipts on this. Dude, in 5 years, I'm going to be pushing 60 freaking years old, for God's sakes. But in 5 years, I expect the Falcons to have more than 40 wins. They're going to be on their 3rd coach again. If they're averaging 8 wins a year over the next 3 years, Raheem Morris isn't going to be the coach in 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I wouldn't trust. I think I'd probably put Harbaugh number 1 if it was just the new coaches, just because the track record, although he does tend to run out his welcome. Mm-hmm. And also you have the Patrick Mahomes boogeyman in the division, which makes it harder, but we'll see. I mean, Falcons are in a good position, and they might be in the best position to get a fast start on that win total as well out of all those teams. As Terry says, Falcons are well positioned with the quarterback position over the next 5. Kudos to Terry and Ra. In theory, they are, again, it'll take Broncos country's tripping over themselves with Bo Nix, and it's exciting too, but let's see what he looks like, 8-10 wins in, because things are
all
going to
you
change.
Can do is on paper, is set yourself as a general manager, and did they get it right? We'll see. Yep. But they're, again, overall, and this is what you're supposed to do when you suffer through 4 straight top 10 draft picks and losing seasons, et cetera, is have a good young roster.
Yeah.
And the Falcons have, and again, I've said it before, and I've really said it about the Atlanta Hawks. So we put Tyler Perry down on courtside and turn him into, Showtime Southeast, make him the Jack Nicholson of, why haven't you done that? Because when we want to talk about bad ownership, see Hawks Atlanta. But Atlanta sports should be a showpiece, should be a premier place. And the Falcons have had some pretty good luck recruiting some free agents here. And Terry's part of that. Arthur Blank is a big part of that. And Raheem Morris now is a big part of that. Grady Jarrett, let's make sure Grady Jarrett is a Falcon for life, that he's got some sort of job somewhere that he wants, even if it's ambassador, like Hank Aaron for 40 years or whatnot. Marie says pushing 60 is crazy. Yeah. But in 5 years, guess what? It won't be that far off for me. Let's not get to there just yet. One more thing, and then we're going to get moving. We're going to get out of here. Is just real quick on the mock draft. The Atlanta. Let me see on Sam here. Sam had a question as I interrupt myself. I get in trouble for interrupting you, Nick, in the comments, and I wholeheartedly agree, y'all. Don't worry. I agree. I do interrupt him too much. It's because I'm about 3/4 ADD and interrupt myself constantly. Just like this with Sam coming in. Sam's not interrupting me. I'm interrupting myself because I'm like, ooh, comment. I need to get to Sam. Did you all see Kirk Benkert's season predictions? Got us at 12 wins as the number 2 seed. I didn't see that, but it doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't. 7-10 got people fired last year for good reason. You've got Arthur Smith getting shillelagh'd up in Pittsburgh right now, and let's give it some time and see how the season goes. But right now, people are already calling for his head, and Desmond Ridder might not be on a roster in a week. He might not be in the NFL. He'll get picked up somewhere, but he's about to get cut by Arizona, is what it looks like, or they might just keep him because he's cheap.
Yeah.
So you filled your three biggest holes with Pro Bowl players: Kirk Cousins, Matt Judon, Justin Simmons. With a good young roster, 12 wins is not out of the question for this team. It's not by any stretch of the imagination.
I mean, the biggest question is, did the coaches that Raheem Morris surrounded himself with, are they going to be able to answer the call? Your two coordinators are first time in their roles in the NFL, in Lake and Robinson. So on paper, roster looks really good. Ben Kurt, I mean, I don't know. Some of his stuff is out there sometimes, I feel, but the Falcons are right there. I think that I would put them fourth in the power rankings in the NFC right now, maybe fifth. I think they're right there with the Eagles and the Packers on paper.
Mm-hmm.
I would put them squarely behind the Lions and the 49ers still. Now, granted, schedules could come into play there if we're just talking pure power rankings, not looking at division or matchups or anything like that.
We're looking at standings. We're absolutely taking schedules into play.
Of course. Yep. So I think that's that tied for third in the NFC right now, which is not a bad spot to be. That puts you in the realm of you could win the whole damn thing. I mean,
I put the Cowboys into that same tier.
Yeah.
Like I think the Falcons are in tier 2 right now with 49ers and Lions, and then Cowboys, Eagles. Who'd you just say? Cowboys, Eagles, Buccaneers are close. They're closer than we want to give them credit for. I don't want to just completely write them off. They were playing pretty good ball last year.
You got the Packers as well.
Eagles, paper. Packers, Cowboys, Falcons, and then I'm not completely discounting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think how many times have they won the division? And they were playing pretty good ball to finish the season last year.
I just don't trust the Baker Mayfield replication with his offensive coordinator leaving. Call me what you will on that one. Other teams, I mean, there's not a lot of we talked about the Seahawks, right? They're a team that playoffs 2 years ago, last year kind of fell off, but Mike McDonald had the highest 5-year win total, right? It says ESPN. So we're on watch with them. The Rams, of course, how could we forget the Rams, right? I think the Rams need to be tossed in.
Yeah.
I take the Rams over the Buccaneers.
It is. When we're getting into power rankings, I can see them like, okay, well, we just maybe 6 in the NFC. All right, if the AFC is a little stronger, 15th for power rankings. All right, I can live with that. I still see them as like, oh, they moved up one spot from 20 to 19. I'm like, the Falcons are going to be better than that. You know, are they a top 10 team? Maybe. Will they have a top 10 record? Pretty good chance. I like that happening.
Yeah. I did want to give a shout out also.
And the Bears aren't out of it yet either. We'll see with the Bears. Rookie quarterback, you got to watch. But they've spent a lot of time collecting assets being poor, just like the Falcons have. There's been a lot of synergy between the Bears and the Falcons and expectations over the last couple of years.
They also siphoned off a bunch of resources from a team being bad in what might end up being the worst trade in NFL history. Herschel Walker is way up there, but I mean, to get what they got, potentially an all-time or potentially a franchise quarterback, DJ Moore. I mean, all those picks, and Bryce Young not looking very good. That's one of those things where you look in the mirror and say, "Thank God that wasn't us," because that would be hard to get past.
I'll never forget that comment someone had that we were talking about, trading down and collecting picks, et cetera, and someone said, "You draft guys always want more picks because you always think you're going to hit." No, it's exactly the opposite, you freaking moron. We always want more picks because we know we're going to miss. And the more shots you have, the more chances you have of hitting. If I only have one shot, I better get it right.
Yeah.
And again, if Bryce Young turns into, who's he got to be? Kyler Murray?
He's not Kyler
to make
Murray.
You feel better about that trade?
He's got to be Drew Brees. I mean, at that point, Kyler Murray is way more explosive, way better arm talent. I mean,
I'm just trying to think like size, his ability to create out of nothing is Patrick Mahomes-esque, but he hasn't shown anywhere near that. And I like Bryce Young. I mean, this is a miss on my part too. I would have taken him probably 1 or 2 in that draft as well.
He was my QB too.
I'm not just
who my number 1 was
on them, but I wouldn't have made that trade. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't have made that trade for that.
Nope. I had Anthony Richardson, my quarterback one, because I'm a little bit influenced by my Josh Allen miss back in the day. So give me the
Anthony's got to
Freakazoid.
prove he can be on the field too. Right now, it looks like
Yep.
just CJ.
Yep.
Leon, appreciate you stopping in. He says, "I'll catch y'all next Monday. Have a great weekend." Yeah, we'll be talking. We'll be talking rosters, 53s, season. Looking towards the next time the Falcons will play will be a game. So we'll be in full game mode starting next week. My Swanker says, "Do you see Michael Penix playing somewhere this season or no?" Yes. Is it in mop-up time, or over a 17 game does Kirk Cousins get a niggle and doesn't need to press it? But yeah, I think we'll see Michael Penix take some snaps this year.
Yeah, hopefully some victory formations, right? That would be great.
Maybe, maybe, but yeah, I think something in there. I mean, got a 36-year-old quarterback. Let's say you get to week 18. Of course, why would we want to play him? He could possibly get hurt. You get to week 18 and your playoff seed has already been decided. They might play the number 3. We've seen enough for Michael Penix. We don't want him playing until the games count. I disagree with the overall premise of that, and I still think it's more about the preseason. The Atlanta Falcons just do not like the preseason. Getting back to the mock draft, and then we're going to get out of here.
Can you tell me the top 10? I'm just curious.
Yeah, number 1, they've got the New York Giants trading up with the Patriots. The Patriots being the worst team to take quarterback. University of Georgia, Carson Beck, go Dogs. And then SEC, okay, let's just keep it down here. Of course, 3/4 of the teams are in the SEC now. That's not kind of as important as it used to be. Edge, James Pierce to the Carolina Panthers that we've just been dogging for being a wreck of a franchise. Again, when we talk about bad ownership, y'all, we've seen bad ownership. Look to our east, straight up 85 into Charlotte, and I feel bad for, this isn't me dogging on the Carolina Panthers fans, just like I don't with Washington Commanders for all those years. I feel bad for you for having to deal in this type of setup where you buy your way in and then you're owner for life with no ramifications. When you watch like international soccer, if you stink, the owner gets punished. He loses millions and millions of dollars if you stink. It's not the fans. The fans get punished too, but the ownership feels it probably as much or more than anybody. And this, bad owners, who cares? We're just, collecting another $500 million on our asset. Ha, ha, ha. Anyway. So I'm not hacking on Panthers fans, but the Carolina Panthers are a train wreck. And they're picking number 2, James Pierce, edge. Denver Broncos, offensive tackle, Kelvin Banks out of Texas. Tennessee Titans, Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. Now, Will Levis is kind of the starter right now, and they liked what they saw out of him, right? That's an interesting one. Yeah. Mykel Williams, or it might be Michael, but it's Mykel Williams, edge, Georgia.
Love him.
Will Johnson to Washington.
Love him.
Patriots in their trade down take Will Johnson, corner, Michigan. Minnesota at number 7. They're not expecting a whole lot out of Minnesota this year. Mason Graham, defensive tackle, Michigan. Raiders at number 8 get their quarterback in Quinn Ewers out of Texas. Number 9, Arizona Cardinals, Nick Scourton, edge, A&M. Will Campbell to the Saints at number 10. And then if you go down to the Falcons, I got to scroll down until my finger starts cramping up here because I get to go far enough down to number 22, Abdul Carter, edge, Penn State.
He's going to go higher than that, man. He is a lightning bolt out there. He could end up being one of the top 5 picks. Abdul Carter, Mykel Williams, Pierce. Those are the edges I got my eyes on right now. So we'll see about Carter. He's kind of doing that Micah Parsons thing where he plays off ball for Penn State, kind of a seek and destroy player, but I think he's going to end up edge in the NFL. So I think he'll end up going earlier, but we'll see.
Marie says the Steelers are about to have a losing season. They've got the Steelers picking 13th, which would be a losing season, taking a wide receiver in Tetaroa McMillan out of Arizona. Wide receiver. What I start doing then is looking at wide quarterbacks. Is there anybody else in the first round? Because the Steelers might re-sign, but they don't have a quarterback under contract for next year. depending, they'll have the money that they could try and go re-sign Justin Fields, but I don't see Russell Wilson being there next year. So it's Justin Fields or what in 2025 for the Steelers?
Purgatory.
Probably purgatory. On that note, y'all, we're going to get out of here. It's been a fun show, a little fired up today, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you did, give us a like. It's a big help for us, and share it among your Facebook friends. If you are watching, that's also a big help for us. Nick and I will be back on Monday. The Falcons play on Friday. We'll get another look at some of those reserve defensive players that I was really impressed with, and I don't expect to see much on offense. Any of the guys that are going to be taking reps on against the Steelers, but on the defensive side of the ball, yes, there should be some guys out there on defense that will see snaps against the Steelers. Brandon Dorlus, maybe Zion Logue, Ruka Rohuro, guys to watch. JD Bertrand could find some time, so we might get a look at those. Nick, you look like you want something to say.
No, man, I'm just excited for the season. Excited for preseason to wrap up now that we're in the third game, and college football too. I mean, right around the corner. That's one of the things that I love about going over the mock drafts is you start to get an idea of the big names and who to watch when you're watching football on Saturday. And I got to say, Scott, you and I are opposite here, right? Coast to coast, talking about that. I did want to hear your thoughts on the most elite time zone for watching sports. Because right now I've been Midwest. I think Mountain Time would be great. I've never been East Coast, but college football, waking up, having coffee, 9 a.m., breakfast in front of you, sit down, Big Ten football at 9 a.m. It's Iowa versus Purdue. I mean, that just, and games done by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. That's elite to me.
When I was younger, it was Central was my favorite. We had I went to Auburn, which is in Central Time Zone. So I lived there for 5 years, and we had dinner at the house at 6 o'clock. And you'd get your dinner, and you'd come back, and Braves would be on at 6:20. Like, perfect. Games would come on at a good time because, yes, I wasn't springing out of bed at 6:30 in the morning. I was usually getting home at 6:30 in the morning. In college, those nooner games were a little tough. I lived out in California for almost 10 years, so I actually prefer that now because I'm up at 6 in the morning. I want them to come on as early as possible. I've actually thought about maybe I should move to Hawaii. I like them to come on early. I don't see the primetime games. I don't stay up that late. You get some of these March Madness games that start at 10:30 at night. I'm like, dude, I'm getting up to pee at halftime because I've been asleep for 2 hours. So I like the West Coast time now, and because again, I don't work a 9 to 5. So I'm available to watch sports. So I want the sports to come on early. That was my my favorite. And Maurice says, it works here. You go to church and then to football. And Maurice, this is blasphemy, I know, but we'd get up and go to breakfast and watch football at 9:30 in the morning. And I called that California church. Is what I call it. West says West Coast is best coast. So yeah, I called it California church was when we're piling up and going to. It was pretty nice going down to Manhattan Beach and getting breakfast in the morning and watching NFL at 9:30 in the morning. That was pretty nice.
What time does the Super Bowl end for you, Scott? When is the Super Bowl? What time? Like 1 a.m., 2 a.m.?
The Super Bowl, it starts at 6 in the afternoon. So it's in the evenings here.
Pre-games to the festivities, though. But
Super Bowls come on so that you don't have to stay up too late to do it.
That's
but
true.
World Series games, they first pitch is at 8. They end at midnight. I'm not seeing the end of a World Series game. I'm watching the end of those at 6 in the morning.
Yeah. Okay. That's. I don't know if I could hang. I'm old now. I'm washed, as the kids would say.
Yeah. So again, I'm a 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's type, and then I'm usually asleep at 11. But I can't be investing myself into an important game between 10 and 11, or I'll never go to sleep. So Joe says boxing is the worst. Main fight at 12 a.m. Yeah, maybe that's another reason why I quit watching boxing. Used to be huge into boxing in my 20s, but I haven't watched boxing in 25 years. I think the last time I went out of my way to watch a boxing match was Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis. And Lennox Lewis beat him from pillar to post. And they called it a draw. I'm like, okay, this is way too corrupt for me. I'm not wasting my time on this. I'd rather watch wrestling where I know it's scripted and I'm guaranteed to get entertained. On that note, we're getting out of here, y'all. Thanks for being here. We'll be back on Monday. We hope y'all have a great rest of your Wednesday. It's hump day. Peace. And then great football weekend. Certainly appreciate it.